to use the reaction emojis at any point during the reading and participate in the chat that way. I also want to say that tonight's reading was sponsored by the Liberal Arts Department at the Kansas City Art Institute and the Creative Writing Program at the Kansas City Art Institute. So let's get started. Our first reader is Diana Khoi Nguyen. Diana is a poet and a multimedia artist. Is the author of Ghost of, released by Omnidon in 2018, and a recipient of the 2021 Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. In addition to winning the 92Y Discovery Poetry Contest, the 2019 Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and Colorado Book Award, she was also a finalist for the National Book Award and LA Times Book Prize. A Kundiman Fellow, she is core faculty in the Randolph College Low Residency MFA and an assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh. Please welcome Diana Khoi Nguyen.
Hi, thank you, Jordan. I'm really grateful to be invited to this reading series, virtually imagining my body somewhere in Kansas/Kansas City, and good to meet you, E. I'm excited to hear your work. Secretly, I always love going first, so then I can just really soak in, what happens next. Okay, I'm gonna maybe spotlight myself because I can do that. How weird to do that to myself. Okay. Hi, so I'm really grateful for those of you who have chosen to share your October evening here with us. We're halfway through the month, and it is that decorative gourd season. I just had some Costco pumpkin pie, so I'm really, living up my Saturday night. I'm gonna read a couple older poems, and then read some new stuff, and then gonna listen to E, and then we'll talk, and then we'll go off into the night. Yeah, I will imagine your beings in space before me. Family ties. Gradually, a girl's innocence itself becomes her major crime. A doe and her 2 fawns bent low in the sumac along a bank of a highway, the pinched peach of their ears twitching in the heat. Into the disordered evening, my brother cut out only his face from every photograph in the hall, carefully slipping each frame back into position. What good does it do? Decades of no faces other than our own chipping faces. What good does it do? This resemblance to nothing we know of the dollhouse. New parents watch their newborn resting in a sunny patch of an empty room, the newborn making sense of its container. And from the road, a deer ripened in death, and a tuft of fir or dandelion tumbled along, gently circled, driftwood, shaking loose, gathered, dissolving into the mouths of jewelweed nearby. Earth is rife with iron, and blood is rich in stardust. Immediately, I spotted one hoof print, then nothing, as if this was where she dragged herself out of the body. Strips of tire torn from their orbit. Is it right then that we are left to hurtle alone? A lot of my friends this past month have become first-time parents, and I think a lot about I made my parents be first-time parents, and they were definitely not prepared. Like, they didn't pay attention to any classes, and so they didn't even buy a crib. And so when they brought me home, I said, "What did you do?" And they said, "We just put you on the floor until something happened." That makes a lot of sense. I don't recommend that. I guess I turned out okay-ish. All right. Reprise. A wild dog rose, unraveling the marvel of the field. Most fragrant hum of all shed feathers. Like some strange music, The world started up again around him. What if he did not depart, but we who gathered around him? Echolocation, as in the still hour before a world is drawn, the way the rufous bird may find the song of a plant, pokeberry, sheep sorrel, the brine maiden silk cascade as she moves in the night toward milk or crickets. Within captivity, we make a space we can recognize, like a root displaced from its origin, growing elsewhere, growing rootless. And what exactly does it mean to be free, to punish the living? And what is our crime? Cognac, loneliness, unremarkable weather? Last night before you, my features darkened from adrenaline, from that which darkens the flesh of prey. Never have I felt guilty about anything I eat. Unaccommodating, as they say in restaurants and relationships, for the preference of others. We who gather shift to let each other pass to prevent the body from abrading further. His skin against the fabric where he died. He tore himself free. The mist-dusted oaks are fixed and unseeing until someone sees them. And in the aftermath, the brothers simply flourished. The trees simply bloomed. The field died massacot, raw chrysanthemums hammering in mist until the mist turned snow with petals. For what purpose do I seek love? What is the end of the world like? Are we penance in a gale, murmuring amongst ourselves? Of mere being, cilia and sinew. Tell me that what we lost as collateral is also a gift. Okay. I hadn't read those poems in a really long time. It kind of transported me to very different emotional space. And those are just two poems from um, the, the collection Ghost of, which I think is so easily dominated by a kind of sense of dread and grief. And I thought it was nice too that in the grief journey, there's also like you can feel a kind of gratitude for the natural world, even if it's decaying, which kind of is right now because it's autumn. I think I'll just read a few things from this newer project. I've been doing a lot of kind of work in the Vietnamese diaspora, having conversations with extended family members, but also strangers in other cities back when we used to travel. But also, I think technology has made it quite easy to have these conversations. And I think that's all you really need to know. Is I've kind of the first book I was thinking a lot about family, and now I'm kind of widening that scope to think about others who've been displaced and not just my parents and relatives. Okay. Selkie weaning young. Finding her hide, we trailed, fingers down, then against, grains of fur thrusting shoulders into its waxy skin. This is how she found us. The past draped about us like a cloak, hands separating peach halves from a core. Her form in the sound, a pandan leaf peeking through milk. The only seals in Vietnam, American men with green faces. I always feel, I don't know what the word is, a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago because I think it was like a decade ago. In my MFA, I wrote this poem called Selkie Weaning Young. It was a very different poem. And this summer I decided to revisit it and kind of rewrote it, but it's still, I'm still the same person that I was before. And there's a kind of, and then like I think I read this at a conference like last month. And then the poet Camille Dungy immediately Googled the poem and found the original version and then emailed me asking for the new one. And I was like, oh my God, you found the old one. I forgot that it's out there on the internet. So be careful, people. When you publish online, it's there forever. But to be fair, she also asked for the poem because she had a student who was working with like a suite of mermaid poems. And I think Selkie is like a mermaid adjacent, of course. So anyway. I don't know why I shared that with you, other than I kind of love that there's a kind of half-life, right, of a poem. So I'll just read a couple pieces. They're kind of prose sections from this long sequence called Doi Moi, which is Vietnamese. Uh, I think about it in two ways. It's the official term for kind of the period of economic flourishing in Vietnam after sanctions were kind of lifted. But I think of this term as a lay Vietnamese speaker, which is, I'm not really a speaker, as meaning kind of like a new phase, new time, new life. Đời mới. At the site where the wound will occur, we know that she was in the garden, the one she had cultivated seed by seed, shortly after moving in with her husband and their 11 children, all of them together again after years of separation. Her husbands and sons beat in America, her daughters and hers in Vietnam, first in Saigon, then a place unmentioned by the coast, underground, in hiding, waiting to make a successful bribe so they might board a vessel, any vessel, collective bride in dark waters facing an unknown stage. Boom, boom, she whispered to my mother. Butterfly, the word my mother used to reference our genitals, two cupped wings like a heartbeat. Boom, boom. In hiding all that year, unmentioned by the coast, my mother as a young girl had her first period, its dark liquid unseen in their nest underground. Boom, boom. The smear of red between my thighs, perfectly symmetrical. Two lips pressed together, as if to kiss or to strike. I am taking Vietnamese 1 right now at the University of Pittsburgh, where I teach. It's filled with 19-year-olds who are pre-nursing, pre-pharmacy majors, and me, an older woman. And it's kind of wonderful to I think of it as like going to the gym for my mouth, to adjust myself to the different intonations and to give myself a much larger framework for the curse words and the domestic household words that I know from my parents. I don't know why I just shared that with you, other than that's also what I'm thinking about as I've been writing this longer project. Oh, I know why I shared this with you, because my instructor, Go Han, mentioned that she loved playing tennis. And my father plays tennis 4 times a week. His whole life, he's always done this. And I'm about to read you a piece about tennis. And I was like, what is it with Vietnamese and tennis? There's something for me to investigate further there. The world beyond tennis in 1968 found the United States divided by racial unrest and the war, where my father entered his teens accustomed to the sound of distant bombs on his daily walks to school, where he spoke the language of a recent colonizer, where nuns punished his palms with sticks. Tennis, from Old French for hold, receive, and take, all words familiar to those who advance without permission. But in this game, there are rules, and pray that the arbiters favor your side. Along with her occupiers, tennis migrated to Vietnam, where only the most privileged held a racket. It's not likely my father picked up the game in Saigon, but perhaps he glimpsed the lizard green courts from across the street where he would have been shot for walking. The same street we walk 26 years later, my father moving slowly as if unsure of the year. He doesn't speak much, but knows the strings of his racket, as well as his own children, mending them as they break. It was his marriage that broke him, not the war, not even the loss of a son, which will have happened decades later. Is the fork not an instrument held before a child's mouth, both of them quiet as father feeds son? No, son, not quiet. Look at his hands. They're humming. Okay. This last poem I read is called Subjunctive. When the tide returns, it paints over bayed mud what evening drains from the sky. What advances spilling over seagrass, smudging pockmarks off the floor. Off the floor of her bunker, my mother lifts her heels so she might see. This is as tall as she'll ever be, and even in hiding, she grows toward light. Though she cannot see them, she knows how clams nudge deeper under cover. One limb slips out from a crack. Slipping into sand is like slipping into shadows, where running takes the form of waiting. Many years later, her daughter rewinds the mother's wedding. Rewinds and pauses and rewinds, trailing a finger along the wrinkles of the transferred tape. There you are, when I find the woman I know in a girl I'll never meet. Break your hands slowly through the mud until you run into something. The bride lifts her gloved hand to ward off sun. Buddha help us when we go to war. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thank you. Thank you.